Well, the future of any country is its youth, and they are made better individuals and nation builders when they get educated. While education is the soul of the future, security keeps and protects the soul. Nigeria today has its future and present in threat. Now, with 10.5 million children out of school and those in school being abducted and worse still killed, the country is on a cliffhanger. On the square today, education and security are focus. Welcome, I'm Sulaiman. Education in Nigeria, like in every other part of the world, helps to shape lives, mindsets, and opinions. It builds the future and helps carve the present to betterment. It changes lives, lifts many out of poverty, and is long considered the hope of the hopeless. Now, like education, security also contributes greatly to the development of a people and nations. Now, it allows peace, and that's the most important constituent of a progressive nation. Security is the foundation on which the greatest countries of the world build their future. Nigerian schools are unsafe despite the Safe School initiative, which came on the back of the Chibok abduction. Many feel threatened, and students who are hardly interested in education have more reasons to stay out of the classroom. Now, the fences are inexistent, security is almost absent, schools are not encouraging, scholarships are hardly available, teaching aids are lacking, and the combination of a risky rise in illiteracy and the growing security are two problems, too risky. Now, with these challenges facing Nigeria, what's the way forward? Now, joining me on the square today is Hassan Rilwan, Executive Secretary, Kaduna State Scholarship and Loans Board. And pretty much later on the show, we'll have Umar, Aliyu, and Kabir, Adamu, security experts. But for now, Rilwan, many thanks for joining us from Kaduna State in Nigeria. Now, there's been a lot of news from your state recently, especially with the safety of our schools. Now, what's the state government doing as a matter of urgency to arrest the ugly trend?
Thank you very much for having me here. When you look at the general challenges of insecurity, especially around banditry and people, terrorists attacking various schools in Kaduna State, the Kaduna State government has actually introduced a very proactive measure, working closely with all the security agencies. As you may be aware, we have a Ministry of Internal Security. The major essence of that ministry is to coordinate the security engagement with these people. It's a huge challenge, I must say, but we remain undoubted. We are not interested in closing down our schools. But of course, we do on the spot and close situation analysis to be able to identify places that are prone, engaging the security forces. We know that these people are essentially federal security agencies. We work collaboratively with them to ensure that we have our school uninterrupted. It's a huge challenge, but one thing that we know as a long-term approach to this is that we should not, under any circumstance, negotiate with these people. We should also avoid paying ransoms. It's a huge emotional decision. It's a very difficult one, but we just need to cut the chain. We need to cut the supply of funding for these people actually.
No doubt your state is leading that move, and it looks like something yielding some dividend, as some other states have started towing that line. But again, quickly, let's take it to your area of operation. Can you tell us the mandate of your board, especially as your state is one of those states whose schools have come under focus lately, security-wise?
So the Kaduna State Scholarship and Loans Board Just as the name implies, our mandate is to identify, to process scholarships for citizens of Kaduna State. We have essentially two types of scholarship. We have the need-based scholarship, we have the merit-based scholarship. When you're talking about the need-based scholarship, it's scholarship that is targeted at the poor, the indigent, people that cannot afford to go to school if there's no government intervention. We have the merit scholarship, which is targeted at people that have shown that excellence, and it's a way of encouraging them to do more. We have the loan scheme. Now, this loan scheme, Kaduna State is the first subnational to have put in place a loan scheme for its citizens. We put in place a 2 billion loan scheme in conjunction with the bank in as far back as December 2019. So the essence of that loan is people in the middle class or in the upper class that will not be able to, that may choose or cannot afford to pay lump sum for school fees can, take a loan and begin to pay gradually over a period of 5 years. The interest rate is a single-digit interest rate. And you see, what we're trying to do in Kaduna State is we're trying to come up with an innovative approach to educational financing.
Well, again, no doubt, time was when a lot of people wouldn't be bothered about tertiary institutions in Nigeria. Now they have come under focus, and we're getting to see some people almost losing interest in going to school. But with this, it seems as if some are buying in. Can we have a sense of the number of beneficiaries of the scholarships from your state and the people who have earned these loans?
So what we are doing is, like I said, we're doing some refinancing, and what we're doing is with scholarships. We give 109,000 to every citizens of Kaduna State that qualifies for the scholarship and who applied. 109,000 to take care of tuition fees, to take care of upkeeps. That's what we used to do when we're giving bursaries. We gave these bursaries up until February 2021, and 6,858 people already benefited from this bursary. And if you look at Kaduna State, considering our position, considering how much comes by way of federal allocation and co, you know that there's no state in this country that pays that high for bursary. Even states like Delta and pay like 20,000 naira for bursary. Other states are paying much lower than that, and it's not consistent. So now, what we are trying to do now is that we're easing out this bursary and replacing it with a need-based scholarship. So before now, what this bursary affords is that once you take an essay and you pass it, you get a bursary regardless of your economic status. Now, what we are trying to do is to target the needy. So which means when you go for a need-based scholarship, you need to prove that you are needy by providing tax clearance certificates of your parents. If they are late to provide that certificate, we're able to look at it scientifically, identify what is the annual turnover of your parent, and be able to place you accordingly. And it brought interesting results. We've had people that have gone for the need-based scholarship, and at the end of the day, we found them with turnovers of about 32 million per person per annum. And so those people have no business, accessing government intervention. And so what we are doing is that we're trying to do targeted subsidy. So we don't want to give subsidy for everybody. So now Kaduna State has a social register. This social register have over 2 million people that have been adjudicated to be poor and to be indigent. That's what I mean by being poor. Now, out of this amount, over 27,000 of these people are actually students in tertiary institutions. So what we are doing as I speak to you is we are integrating that data with the scholarship board. So once you are on that data and you apply for the scholarship, you don't even have to bring any evidence to show that you are poor, because you're already on the social register that shows that you are poor. And then we can just onboard you in and ensure that we take care of your tuition. So
let me jump in here, Rilwan. I'm a little bit concerned about the orphans. Keep in mind, we live, in communities that is, those of us here in Nigeria, not everyone has evidence of death. The issue of death certificate is still very much, not fanciful for a lot of people. So for the orphan that you require a certificate of death, how does he or she prove that when there is none?
A good number of our people, you rightly said, in the environment where we are, a good number of our people don't get death certificate at the point of death. But when you know that you need to get a government intervention, a death certificate is something you can get in less than an hour in the Nigerian Population Commission. The Nigerian Population Commission is in every state. almost in a lot of local governments around. So if you cannot get it from a general hospital, you get it with them. We've seen people got this certificate in less than 2 hours, and they come to us, we tell them where to go get it, and they go get it and bring it back. The idea is, look, we cannot try to identify people on the strength of the clothes they wear, the cap they wear, the shoes they wear. We need to begin to approach this in a scientific manner, in a traceable manner. We need to be able to identify those that really need it and target social intervention towards those people.
You know, sorry to cut you there, because I'm trying to see how much we can put, on the take off the plate before you go. You call this a loan. Looking at the scholarship, there's also the loan aspect of it. How do you plan, now talking about your state, Kaduna, how does the state plan to get these loans back?
Yes, what we've done, that is why the first thing we did is to go into partnership with the bank. Because you need to understand that we are not a bank. We don't have a specialty in doing this. So the first thing we did is to work with the bank. This bank have a history of, credit pattern. So there's a credit risk assessment pattern that's already established. So what we do is we just work with them. We identify our citizens for them, and then with the agreed, protocol, these loans are accessible. And the interesting thing, we made it to be online. So people can just go to the website scholarship.kdsg.gov.ng. Once you go in there, within 24 hours, we can approve that loan for you, recommend you to the bank. And we have desk officers, even though they are seated in Lagos headquarters, we have means of communication through WhatsApp and co. We are looped, and we say, okay, we've processed this person. In that day, they get approval. So if you see anything goes delayed, is that you've not brought some documentation to perfect it. And this documentation, we've made it as simple as possible. So this is what we've tried to do with the loan, to make it accessible.
Let me bring in this aspect. I don't know how this works. There's palpable fear by parents and students on the one hand, and a recent increase in school fees by your state university, that's the Kaduna State University. So how is your state handling this, plus especially gauging the criteria for selection of beneficiaries of the merit-based scholarship?
Yeah, so the people that have this fear are people that will fall under the need-based scholarship, not necessarily the merit-based scholarship. Now, you see, when you talk about school fees increment in Kaduna State, you are living in Lagos, you understand how much it is for tertiary education. Tertiary education used to be 26,000 naira in Kaduna State, even when you want to study medicine. That's not tenable. That used to be the fee in 2004. What we are doing in Kaduna State is that we've segregated the student into 3 categories. We have the categories of people that fall into well-to-do homes. Even if the school fees is 2 million naira, they can afford it. What government is saying is we are not going to subsidize for them. They should go and pay the fee. They are paying it anyway for their siblings that are in Sudan, in Uganda, and Europe. And then we have the second class of people, the middle class. They are earning a decent wage, but they may not be able to at once bring out money to pay a fee. So what we are saying to these people is, go get a loan from scholarship board. It's single digit, it has a long payment plan, so that you can conveniently, at the end of the day, the monthly payment you'll be paying would be as just even lower than the 26,000 you were paying before. And then you have the most concerning level. That is the lowest level.
Well, I'm afraid I think there's a glitch to the connection. I hope Rilwan, well, maybe you can establish another connection with us. Okay, Rilwan, okay, I see you're still there. For a bit, I couldn't hear you. I think, apologies, we have to reconnect to Rilwan in Kaduna in Nigeria's northern region. Looking at Rilwan, I understand you're back. If you can hear me, there have been at least 3 attacks on tertiary institutions in Kaduna in 2021. That's this year alone. What is the state doing to protect this group of students that you're investing on at the moment?
Yeah, so before I go to that, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
So before that, I was talking to you about the 3 categories of students. Those that can afford it, we want them to pay for it. The second level are those that their parents have a decent wage. but they may not be able to bring the money at once to pay this money. We're saying that they should go for loan. The repayment plan is flexible. Yes. Then we have the most interesting, the people is not affordable to them in the first instance. These are people on the social register. So these are the people that we're targeting with the need-based scholarship. All they need to do is to apply for it. Now, the Vice Chancellor of KASU, the Commissioner of Education, myself, the Executive Governor of Kaduna State, we've been clear that no student is going to drop out of school on account of inability to pay school fees, because all we need to do is to get them to onboard them into the system, except a student that of his own volition does not want to go to school. So we've categorized this into three. It doesn't make sense for us to put school fees at 26,000 naira or at fees that are not realizable, and we subsidize for the rich and for the poor. We need to make sure that we are putting government resources to those that need it and not for everybody. So that's just the general analysis behind the decision to increase the school fees to the normal level, and then to make allowances available for those that actually need it. And that's exactly what we're doing. And that's quite interesting. So, and this is what we need to begin to look out for in the country as a whole. So you see, with a tertiary education, in the Kaduna State, we've made basic education free. We give school uniforms free. We are building schools. We've made our education has the highest budget in the budget. I mean, the highest amount in the budget. Now, when you're talking of tertiary education, we have partners, the parents, the government, the business people. We need to build an endowment. We need to get government, we need to get parents to do their own part of it. We need to, as I'm talking to you now, we're building a new university, Kaduna State University. Over 9 billion has gone into that.
Let me quickly, apologies, let me quickly bring you back to that question, which we haven't actually answered. You're investing heavily on students at the moment, in spite of the security challenge your state and the country is going through at the moment. What are those key things you've been able to put in place to safeguard these, future leaders of Nigeria's northwestern region?
Yeah, so the first thing that we've done is we have syndicated, we are coordinating a central approach towards information dissemination, intelligent gathering. We have a system in place where we're within a short period of time, these things can be escalated, and then the only need to engage with the federal services, support them, provide information, and encourage them to take necessary actions to make our schools safe. So with the intelligence gathering, yes, we're working on that. Community policing, getting people involved to be aware, of movement of people, but we have to give the information to the federal agencies. So we are doing our own part at doing all of this.
I think it wouldn't be fair without asking you this question that worries every Nigerian and African when they look towards the children, especially in Nigeria's northern region, the Almajiri system. Now you're talking about education, fantastic, plans you have for these great future leaders. What would you expect the northern states to do to reduce, if not eliminate, the Almajiri system in Nigeria's northern region?
So again, I will speak to what we're doing in Kaduna State. So we have banned the system of Almajiri in Kaduna State. What we've done is we've made basic education free and compulsory. So if you are a student, school age, pupil of school age in Kaduna State, you have to be in school. We've put enabling laws to make sure that we persecute.
Well, again, I think there's a glitch to that connection to Rilwan Hassan. Rilwan Hassan is the Executive Secretary, Kaduna State Scholarship and Loans Board. What we hope we can actually conclude this conversation with Rilwan Hassan. Well, that's technology for you. Apologies again, Rilwan. Good to know that you're back. Let's quickly wrap up this conversation. Let me let you wrap up on that.
also gotten the teachers. We're putting them through training. We're formalizing them into the system so that we can give them qualifications. They can be part of Islamic education. Is an important part of our society. So when these teachers are formally trained, they are integrated into the teaching system, and then they become part of the system. But at the end of the day, we don't want to have special schools for Al-Majri or what. We have schools in every nook and cranny. We've made them free, and then student pupils that are not from Kaduna State, we've moved them to other states, and we were ready to receive the Kaduna State children that are in other states. And once they come back into Kaduna State, we link them to their family, and then we link them to the closest primary school, public primary school that is closest to them. We give them education there. We give them uniform there, so they don't have to come to school in tattered uniform. We have a school feeding program in place. And so this is our approach. Then we also have the edu marshals to make sure that we go after kids that are not supposed to be on the street. We try to put them back into school. We take their biometrics so that we make sure that, when we take them, we know where they're coming from, and we take necessary action to make sure that it doesn't occur again. It's a major issue. The challenge we're having is, Kaduna State is not standing on its own. So we have neighboring states. So if we begin to clean up and we are successful like we've done, you have influx of people coming in from other states. So there need to be a concerted effort. All the northern states that have come together, they've said they want to abolish the Al-Majri system.
But again, Rilwan, if they keep coming to your state, it means just one thing. They love better education. They don't like the Al-Majri system, because if you take them off the streets, and even the Islamic teachers, popularly called malams, if you also give them proper structure in your education, empowerment or reformation, perhaps more will come because they like what you're doing. Quickly here, I know you're not the governor of Kaduna State, but any idea if there are conversations amongst the northern governors, in an effort to actually collaborate and work together to see that the children are off the streets?
There are high-level collaboration with the governors, especially at the Northern Governors Forum. But you see, there's a difference between when the governors come and agree that this is a position, and when it comes to the practicability, when it comes to the enforcement, when it comes to putting the right resources in place, you see different states are actually committed to this in different ways. I can only speak of what we're doing in Kaduna State. We'll continue to nudge our neighbors. We'll continue to make them to see reasons why we need to take the hard decisions to ensure that we, eradicate this system. It's something that's been around for so long, so naturally it's not easy for everybody. It doesn't make political sense in most cases for us to be able to eradicate it, but it is something we have to do. And for anybody that knows Malam Nasir Rufai, you know that he never shies away from taking difficult decisions that will lead to better outcomes in the future. And that's exactly what we're concentrating on doing in Kaduna State.
Well, it's a fine place for us to say many thanks for being such nice company. Malam Rilwan Hassan, Executive Secretary, Kaduna State Scholarship and Loans Board. We'll look to, New Central is already working to come into looking at some of these structures and facilities you have spoken about to do what we call a follow-up. Many thanks for being such nice company today.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, anyway, still to come here on The Square, the experts on security will be joining us to look at how best the northern region of Nigeria can keep its schools safe. Stay with us. It's the home stretch here on Village Square Africa on News Center Television, and we're looking at education and security in Nigeria. Terrorists and the so-called bandits have ceaselessly attacked innocent Nigerians since 2014, with the attack and abduction of Chibok girls being the first major school attack. Now, for almost a decade, it's been about a bout of fear and trepidation of an average rural northern student as they are unsure of the evil the day holds. And for boarding students, they probably never sleep with their eyes closed. Now, the safety of these defenseless and unprotected schools are a source of concern and should be a source of worry to any good leader. Now, the challenge to keep schools safe, although ambiguous and huge, is very achievable, and that's key to reviving the soul of Nigeria's future. Joining me now is Kabir Adamu and Umar Aliyu. Now, welcome to the program, Kabir Adamu. Good to see you. Quickly here, in the next 15 years, barring any natural disaster or war, Nigeria is expected to hit 300 million. Now, we know the North has the highest birth rate in the country at the moment, and these are children who ought to be in school. Now, you've spoken about this countless times, you've also written about it. How can the country secure the future amid its current predicaments?
Evening, Suleiman, and thank you for having me. In simple terms, is to take responsibility. There is a social contract between the citizens and the government, and that social contract has some elements in it. One of it is, of course, the provision of security, but then beyond that, there is an expectation that as a committee of nations, we have certain standards that we must aim to meet, including the education of children, as it is enlisted in the universal goals that have been declared by the UN. And so at the minimum, that is what I would expect from both the federal, the state, community, and even down to religious institutions and family units. It's not just a responsibility that would go to government, it's a responsibility that even fathers and parents, as it were, both fathers and mothers, should provide at least some levels of contribution to ensure that every child that comes into this world is given that opportunity to be educated. So that's really the minimum that I'm hoping. And sometimes these things would have some cultural ramifications, religious ramifications, financial, and all that. But irrespective of what the ramifications are, I'm hoping that this would be a collaborative effort between all these levels that I've mentioned previously.
Let me bring in quickly here Umar Aliyu. Good to have you join us, Umar Aliyu. You've heard your colleague Kabir Adamu. Some experts have said that the Kagara schoolboys kidnap and others will mean just one thing, that Nigeria adopts a carrot and stick approach. And a certain, Muslim preacher, Sheikh Gumi, has often suggested that the bandits are approached for discussion. Now, do you think these are viable options to keep the schools safe?
Basically, keeping our schools safe is not a concern or priority of our government, federal, state levels, as it were. The threats, as we know them, are not insurmountable. I can tell you personally that I have reached no less than 9 state governors. I have reached no less than 2 service chiefs. I have access to the chief of defense staff. And I can go on and on. And the solutions to the problems I have profiled. There is no will, there is no serious concern to protect our children in their school. The solutions to the problem not rocket science. We have aired them. We have displayed them in programs on TV. We have sent them to people that are as close as your ear is to your head, to the principals, as in governors, ministers, and what have you. The will to protect our children is not on the front burner of what I want to call our public office holders at the moment. What is 2023?
Let me bring in Kabir. Kabir, you had Umar, and he's taken it back to an arm of government. You mentioned the government, now the states especially. He said it doesn't look like that's a priority for state governments in Nigeria to ensure that schools are safe. Earlier on, we spoke with the executive secretary of the Kaduna State Loans and Scholarship Board, where he said, well, quite a number of things have been put in place. But how can schools be protected? You know, this question can never go away, Kabir. We'll keep asking until we get an answer. How can schools be protected from future attacks and also ensure that they stay in class and, importantly, have their minds in one piece?
And, you know, it's an existential challenge for Nigeria. So frankly, we should not stop talking about it. We need to achieve the minimum level of security. And to an extent, I agree with my co-discussant. As security experts, what we see is the vulnerability. And has the vulnerability changed from 2014 till today, 2021? The answer is no. Those vulnerabilities are still there. But then I have gone a bit beyond criticism. I have come to the conclusion that criticisms don't really help us. So sometimes what I do is, well, do the analysis, criticize it, but then come up with solutions. And so even if we see those vulnerabilities are still there, what has been done and what can be done? Now, I want to give the example of Pakistan that has the same challenge that we had and did the same thing that we did. That's the irony. We embraced the same safe school initiative in 2014. Pakistan did the same thing. Today, their schools are much, much safer than ours. And what are the three things that are contained in that safe school initiative? Number one, physical security protection within the schools. And by physical security protection, we're talking about fences, stronger doors, stronger windows, an alarm system, sometimes cameras, name them, all the paraphernalia of physical security provision. Number two is the personnel within the school, the pupils themselves, the teachers, the academic staff, that is, and then non-academic staff, the contractors that come to the school, and then all other visitors, including parents, even because parents do visit the school. What kind of training will these components of people within the school be given, so that first off, they recognize the dangers and then they respond to those dangers? And number three is the environment where the school is located. Now, environment has different components. It includes the natural environment. It includes the habitats of that environment, including the people living in the village around it. Now, most times, they are the ones that would first sense the danger, and then if they take the right steps, they can protect the school. So Pakistan has implemented all of these three levels that I've mentioned, to the extent that today their schools are much, much safer. But why is it that in Nigeria, even though we adopted it at the same time like Pakistan, we're yet to see the implementation of that safe school initiative? Now, let me take the discussion a bit further. 2 years after the adoption of safe school initiative, we also adopted, sorry, not 2 years, 5 years after the adoption of safe school initiative, in 2019, we adopted the Safe School Declaration, also a multilateral effort. Now, Safe School Declaration went a bit above the Safe School Initiative. That declaration is aimed at achieving safety for schools, even during conflict. Now, that means that even if there is a conflict ongoing, like we have conflict ongoing in Nigeria at the moment, schools will be immune from that conflict. In other words, both actors, whether government or non-state actors, recognize the fact that these are schools and so should never be attacked. Some would say it's almost impossible to achieve that because a group like Boko Haram would still attack schools irrespective of what kind of measures you put in place. But then that's what the Safe School Declaration is trying to achieve. And is it possible to achieve that? Yes, it's very possible. If the various components of the Safe School Declaration are implemented, I believe personally that we can reach a stage where all parties to the conflict recognize that schools are sacred and should not be affected in conflict situations.
Let me bring in Umar Aliyu again. Umar, earlier you told us of your very wide reach, which is very important in our conversation today. Perhaps maybe we can start having that, have an idea of what the government should be doing at the moment. Listening to Kabir, Africa needs solutions, and now than ever, we should start talking about the solutions. With a massive youth population that is unemployed in Nigeria, can the country bless the trail in school security by being the first country on the continent to adopt a separate security network for the protection of students and schools?
That is not an impossible feat to achieve, but it certainly will not come with the kind of half-minded and unserious approach we have from our kind of government. Our politicians are only interested in things that make them look viable. They are not really interested in the welfare of the people they have sworn to protect. And it is clear, it's out there. You know I am political. Now, professionally speaking, I have reached the governors of Borno State, Kabir State. I have reached the governor of Kaduna State, Niger State. I have reached the Federal Capital Territory. I have reached the office of the Chief of Defense Staff. I can go on and on. And what did I suggest for our children? It's a very simple, cost-effective piece of equipment. It's an aerial surveillance device. It does not use power, neither does it use fuel. It is air-driven, and all it needs is helium to float. A helium balloon is lighter than air. With a camera attached to it, it gives you an eye in the sky, surveillance capability. So wherever the bandits want to come from, they can be against. When they take our children, wherever they go to, we'll be watching and we'll meet them there. For a place like the north, that is largely Sahel savannah, that will deny any group or bandits the freedom of movement. That is what we require. All our schools in northern Nigeria cannot become garrisons or physical security hubs. We do not have the resources to have that strength. And don't forget, back home here, Lagos State. Lagos is largely rainforest vegetation. Once upon 2-3 years ago, kidnappers were taking children out of schools on the Lekki axis. That's where the Lagos creeks are. Lagos surmounted it. How did they do it?
So in other words, some of these places, call them, loopholes, have already been identified. Now, you've just reminded, the continent, especially Nigeria, what was about some 3-4 years ago in its commercial capital, Lagos. Let me bring in Kabir again. Kabir, many schools have been left with their covers blown. Sometimes you go to some schools, no perimeter fencing, and the man you thought was a security personnel is just a mere doorman or a gate man. So what's the importance of communal intelligence gathering in protecting these schools in such urban areas and even in rural areas as identified by Umar?
It's very important. When I was explaining the concept of safe school initiative, community participation is absolutely important. And that participation has different levels, but the most important that those levels is in surveillance and intelligence gathering. These attackers, the perpetrators of the various acts, are not ghosts. Some of them live within the communities. Those that don't live within the communities, before arriving in the schools, would most likely come into the community, either as informants to gather intelligence for the attackers, or sometimes just passing through to get access to the school. So where the school is observant and the capability to convey information to the security agencies, then that community would be the first line of defense for the school. And I guess that is the area that Umar was talking about and referring to. So it's absolutely important. The intelligence gathering as well as surveillance capabilities of communities in any safe school security arrangement.
Well, Kabir, do you think it's high time Nigeria started, an education awareness whereby citizens as well as students can be taught some simple basic security tips? An average, child should be able to describe or sense danger and, know what next to do. Shouldn't that be coming from the government at this point in time?
Again, I would, mention that I've reached a point where, frankly, I've stopped sort of demanding and criticizing. Some of us, including myself, we've made ourselves available to the Ministry of Education, and I'm sure Umar is in that category, where we're offering to assist the Ministry of Education develop a checklist that they can either post on their website or distribute to all state ministries of education. And that checklist can be used by all schools, whether federal or state-owned schools, as well as private schools that are interested to do an audit and verify whether they have the minimum standard for school protection. And you gave an example. A fence is a very good example. What is the height of that fence? What is the integrity of that fence? So all that will be in the checklist. All the schools will have to do is to tick. And once they tick, they can now do like a total and conclusion and do the analysis and say, okay, based on this checklist, we are short here. We need to improve in this particular area. So we've offered ourselves, we're available. We can help the Ministry of Education develop that checklist. And then based upon that checklist, the schools can now do an audit and evaluation. Now, the next question that would come up is where they have identified vulnerabilities and shortcomings, where does the funding come to enhance the security area that has a shortcoming or vulnerability? That is where the interrogation of parents come in. And I'm urging all parents that are listening to this or that will come across this to take a step further, go to environment where you've taken your child to and ask critical questions from the school management regarding security. We are too relaxed about security. The fact that, especially in certain locations such as the Northwest and North Central, where we've seen an increase in kidnap for ransom incidents, parents should ask those critical questions so that they put pressure on both the school management as well as government to enhance the security posture of the schools. Where parents are not satisfied with the response of the school management, they should either withdraw their wards from that school and change them to schools where they are more comfortable with the security, or put pressure on the school management through the PTA if they have a functional PTA in that school. Now that takes me to the next level. The PTA to have a responsibility to ensure that the school management has increased its security posture, given the kind of threats that we currently face in Nigeria. And then, of course, we can move that to the media that has that responsibility, and I'll give your media house the credit for even having this program and bringing out such a feature. Now we should continue to do that, continue to interrogate and put pressure on government until the security postures in all our schools reach a level where everyone is happy and that the schools are protected from all sorts of threats, as it were.
Let me bring in Umar Aliyu to weigh in on this. Quite a lengthy one from both of you, looking at now what the schools can do in the absence of government and agencies weighing into all of this. It's quite key here, Umar Aliyu, that the schools should also be able to approach some experts like yourselves. How can this be done? And if there are any other, tips that can be very useful for schools and even students watching at the moment, by all means, share, Umar Aliyu.
A lot of these tips would have been useful. I say so because on my dashboard at our consulate, your average day kidnapper today is way bolder than he was 4 years ago. So 4 years ago, several schools would have been the way to go, particularly with those parameters, pre-requirements, and minimum requirements that schools must meet, and also those things parents and communities must do to ensure schools and children are safer. 4 years down the line, talking today, 2021 Nigeria, that kidnapper is so bold, he has no reckoning for the community, the school, the law enforcement, or whatsoever. It's clear. They are so bold now. They have left the fringes and gone to city towns, to greater hubs where we have nothing like ungoverned spaces, and they do their thing and walk away. So what's the way forward? The lowest, fast track, low-hanging fruit position the government can take is to break that will by anyone to go to a school, gather children, and walk away with them. And the best way to set about that is aerial surveillance, the solution to which, as I told you, I have sent to the relevant offices. With an eye in the sky, you can see almost 200 kilometers radius, day and night, with internet protocol capability. Then whoever pleases can come from wherever he pleases. Pick any school, take our children, and I assure you, we can backplay our cameras, see where he came from, and see where he has gone to, and meet him there. That alone is deterrent enough to break the will of any group to act the way our tormentors and kidnappers are doing. That's the fastest approach. Any other way will be to run circles around this problem, because as I told you, The threat is so bold, he doesn't speak the majesty of the state, nor has any reckoning for public regulatory law enforcement institutions. Not anymore.
Well, I think it's a fine place for us to leave it here. And as Kabir said earlier on, the media and everyone must stay on this conversation to ensure that not only in Nigeria, not only in Kenya, not only in Ethiopia, the entire continent is safe. So this conversation will continue again here on the square. At this point, I'd like to say many thanks to you, Kabir, Adamu, and Umar Aliyu. And of course, Rilwan Hassan, who also joined us from Kaduna earlier today. The safety of schools, its youth, students, is tantamount to the safety of a country's future. And that's why schools and students need to feel safe. I'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.